Welcome to Hero Club. I'm Nick Williams.
And I am George Primavera.
George and I have been playing D&D together for years.
Now, a lot of people think you need to be a big, huge nerd boy to play Dungeons & Dragons.
But in reality, you just have to be willing to spend 4 hours of your own time on a weekday trashed on cheap beer cross-legged around a coffee table.
I lost a game of Flip Cup in 2012, so I had to buy all the books and learn how to be Dungeon Master. My dad was disappointed.
Yeah, he was. But after a game or two, we realized that it's actually a really fun and effective way to tell an awesome story.
Yeah, it's like long-form improv, but you kill more people.
Here's what you need to know. George creates a world and the framework for a cool story.
And the players, like Nick, create characters beforehand, all with special abilities, sometimes magical, sometimes not, and they adventure through the story as best they can, trying not to die.
We, the players, roll dice to see if our improvised actions fail or succeed, trying to beat a number in George's head that he promises he doesn't change at will.
But at the table, I am God, my game, my rules.
Okay, so it's as nerdy as you thought. You know what? Just fuck off, man.
Whoa, okay.
Fuck right off,
all right,
okay?
Nick, maybe don't tell everybody to F off. And it's not that nerdy. I mean, we get rid of all that stupid math, and we add music and sound effects and stuff like that, so, you know, it's cool.
Anyway, these stories do follow a linear plot, so if you want to know what's going on, start at the beginning of any season you like and have fun with it.
Without further ado,
welcome to Hero Club! Yeah!
Leviticus 26:7. And ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword.
it's gotten cold. The sun has been down for a long time, and the dry Colorado air, now chilled, stings your cheeks a bit and causes your ears to ache. After a moment, it becomes apparent that our hero's steeds are exhausted, and Old Blue, sitting on the back of the now halted cart, is already snoring loudly. As Elias traces the scars on his chest, he notices that rather than being hot and irritated, they feel cold, and Elias can't feel his fingers on the scar tissue. Ember unbridles the mules, Jeremiah ties his horse to the cart, and they spark a small fire in the shadows of a forest of small trees and dry brush. Skillet busies himself with an enormous sack, pulls out various kitchen utensils, and goes to work.
All right, folks. Think it's about time I make you that cheddar and bacon pie I owe you.
I am a quiver with fucking anticipation.
As you should be, Mr. Finch. You are in for a real treat.
Jeremiah takes out his long, billiard-shaped tobacco pipe and busies himself with packing and lighting it.
Elias stares off in a daze, far into the darkness.
Ember, after patting down both mules, goes over to the fire and sits down.
The crickets are loud in the trees. Skillet, after some preparation in the darkness, brings a giant pot filled to the brim with raw ingredients, places it over the fire, and it begins to cook. Immediately, the smell of cheddar and bacon and crust fills the air and causes your mouths to water.
Yes, sirree. 7 out of 10 women that try this famous dish of mine have asked me to be their husband. And having tasted it myself, I can't rightly blame them.
Well, that's a fine ratio, Mr. Skillet. Nothing to be scoffed at.
If you don't mind me asking, why aren't you married then?
Well, Miss Ember, that's a road I've been down a couple of times. Perhaps too many times for my liking, if I'm being totally honest. Can't tie old Skillet down, it seems. I've been married 4 times. What was it, 5? Now, what was it now?
He wanders away, muttering about utensils and silverware under his breath.
You gave me that ladle, love.
Skillet leaves the three of you alone, and it's weirdly quiet for about a solid minute.
I know he's kind of new to our group, but I'm very excited to taste the bacon cheddar pie.
Yep, the aroma is quite intoxicating.
Are we not going to talk about what has happened the past 2 days?
Jeremiah takes a long, slow pull on his pipe and stares at both of them from across the fire. Well, I was going to get to that. I think if this relationship is going to continue, I need to know who I'm working with. I mean, you came well-intentioned to my house, and I understand, now having seen what I have seen, that you spoke the truth. However, I don't know fuck all about the two of y'all. I mean, Elias, you are awfully young for such a lofty goal. And Ember, I have never seen a person wield two swords like that, and I have seen many men kill many men in the past. He then sits back and continues to puff away on his pipe, watching them intently.
Excuse me, Mr. Finch. After everything that we've seen in these past 2 days, you want to know more about who
Elias,
we are?
I don't mean to speak down to you, but I don't get into bed with people I don't fucking know, do you understand? Now, I have agreed to be your companion, but I've always found that a working relationship is greased up with the addition of understanding and commonality between fellows.
With all due respect, Mr. Finch, you've seen Lucifer with your own 2 eyes, and you still think that you need something more from us to do the Lord's work?
Don't go getting your collar in a bunch. I'm asking nothing of you other than some polite fucking conversation. Or, if you'd rather, we could continue to sit here in silence like a pack of fucking goddamn Philistines.
There's a clatter of kitchenware as Skillet clearly has knocked over a large pile of accoutrements.
I remember, there was the lady pirate Molly O'Houlihan, French Baroness Fabienne Canard, and the Chinese empress known only as the Lily of Winter. That's at least a couple of them. The ex-wives, I mean. Skillet comes hobbling back with an armful of plates and silverware and a ladle from the cart and starts serving the 3 adventurers, as well as himself.
The trio eyes each other suspiciously as they take bites of their pie and are immediately overwhelmed by how delicious this cheddar and bacon pie is. You're all immediately transported to memories where you feel comfortable and warm and safe, and the silence gets just a little bit less tense.
Skillet, mark me down as woman number 8.
Well, Miss Ember, you do this salty old coot too much honor. I am plumb flattered, thank you.
I have to hand it to you, Mr. Skillet. I have sampled every house of ill repute and bordello in this fine nation of ours, and nothing I have found there holds a candle to this delicious cheddar bacon pie.
Skillet tips his big floppy hat to Jeremiah. Thank you kindly, Mr. Finch.
Ember finishes her serving of pie, puts down the plate, and looks Jeremiah in the eyes. Basically, the bare bones version is that Eli and I over here are brother and sister. He got his so-called vision and we came looking for you. He's a clerical prodigy. I did some fighting in my day, and that's the essentials.
Reinvigorated by the conversation, Jeremiah sits up at the edge of his seat and engages. Well, I could have told you that. Clearly you're a killer. You have seen some true fighting in your day. I can see it in your eyes. And I was gonna ask you, actually. A few hours back when Eli here healed up your wounds, you said you only wanted 1 scar. What scar would that be? I'll show you mine if you show me yours. And Jeremiah undoes the first 2 buttons on his shirt and pulls the right side back to reveal 2 different scarred over bullet wounds. This one here, Pinkerton, back in 43. He was playing dead by the side of the road. I was young and dumb. And this one here, well, needless to say, Mr. Skillet's not the only one with a checkered romantic past.
Ember looks down at the ground and kind of gives a small smirk. Then turning around, she pulls down the collar of her blouse to reveal the beginning of a burn mark just behind her left ear. With all due respect, Mr. Finch, I don't know you well enough to show you the rest.
Jeremiah kind of unceremoniously punches Eli in the arm. Oh, she's got fire in her crawl, this one.
Elias shoots a look at Jeremiah, shoots another look at Ember, and starts unbuttoning his shirt. Well, if we're talking about scars, you want to see some of mine? Huh? You want to see the scars I just got? Can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about anything that makes sense right now that matters?
I love swapping scar stories. Skillet starts undoing his shirt as well to reveal a huge bite mark over one of his shoulders. Bengal tiger. Hunted him in India. It's where I picked up my tandoori chicken recipe as well.
Well, goddamn, Skillet, you've been around the block a couple of times.
That I have, mister. Lost the leg to a shark in the South China Sea.
Thank you, Mr. Skillet, for the pie.
I got a bullet wound in my ass if you want to.
Elias stands up and walks off into the woods.
Ember looks after him and sighs. Yeah, he did that when we were kids too. He used to throw occasional hissy fits when he wasn't getting enough attention.
I was gonna ask you about that too. If you don't mind me saying, y'all don't seem all that close for a couple of siblings.
To be fair, we hadn't been speaking up until about a month ago. He came to find me and I him right before we came to get you.
Well, is that so? Well, how'd you come to find each other?
Well, I had noticed an uprising in the number of demons I had, witnessed in my day-to-day. And so I thought it would be a good idea to go get my brother. So I went east. He got a vision from His Holiness upstairs, telling him to go find me and yourself, and he headed west. Funnily enough, we met in the middle, and it was very serendipitous, I think you could agree.
Well, I'll be goddamned, that is one hell of a story. To just find each other all serendipitous-like. And Miss Ember, I will hope that you excuse my curiosity, but you said that you were a demon hunter? Is that where you got that scar?
Ember gives a little wave of her hand to say, oh, it's no big deal. Oh, we all do crazy things when we're young. I just happened to be, fighting demons a bit when I was a teenager. But anywho, enough about me. What about you? How did you get to be such a bitter old man? With all due respect.
Oh, well, none taken. Why don't we just go ahead and say I've lived a life? I don't know how much the two of y'all know about me, but I'd say about 90% of what you read in the dime westerns is true.
Skillet raises his hand, interrupting Jeremiah.
Oh, please, Mr. Skillet, you don't need no formalities with me.
Is it true that you once robbed a gold mine, and then, when 20 Pinkertons went in after you, you took an alternative exit and dynamited it with them all inside?
No, that one's a lie. It was 40 Pinkertons.
Hoo-wee!
But these last couple of years have been quiet and solitary. To be honest with y'all, I've been chomping at the bit for another ride on the bull. I was pretty goddamn certain I was gonna expire on my own up there with nothing but a farty dog to keep me company.
Old Blue rolls over in his sleep.
See what I mean?
Ember, looking like she's finally made up her mind, gives a reluctant sigh. The scar on the back of my neck, which traverses down the length of my back, I received during a particularly nasty fight with a Blabrazu. And don't bother asking what that is. Hopefully, if you're lucky, we'll never run into one of those on this trip. Took place in a burning building that was on fire, and I knew the only way to destroy it would be to collapse the whole building. So I did. Luckily, it killed him, but I had to crawl my way out, burning my back on the embers. That's where I got my scar and my name.
Well, shit, girl, you've got some balls. I brought down some burning buildings in my day, but I've never been on the inside. Fuck.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it.
Well, I don't know about that. Scars build character. You're alive, ain't you?
Yeah, alright.
And I would be remiss if I did not tell you that Ember was a hell of a lot better of a name than Mary Elizabeth.
Thank you. I know, right? If old Bible for Brains over there would just get it right for fucking once, that'd make me pretty goddamn happy.
Old Blue rolls over, wakes up, pads over to Jeremiah, sits, and begs for his scraps.
Without looking, Jeremiah scrapes the remainder of his plate onto the ground for Old Blue. Oh, no insult meant to you, Mr. Skillet. Old Blue has impeccable taste.
Glad I pegged him right. He does look like he has a healthier appetite than that, though. And Skillet takes a serving of the bacon and cheddar pie out of the pot and dumps it on top of the scraps in front of Old Blue.
That'll taste even better once we're smelling that later from Blue.
I have to admit I've grown so accustomed to the odor that I hardly even notice it anymore. Miss Ember, if you'll permit, there was just one more bit of business that I wanted to talk to you about. You remember the other day, up at the cabin, that man who I put down mentioned the name Abraham Tolliver?
His last words, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's damn right. Mr. Tolliver is an old acquaintance of mine, from the old days.
At the mention of the name Abraham Tolliver, Skillet spits on the ground.
He's a marshal. He's been on my tail for, 15 years? Really damn hard to kill. Not for lack of trying, of course. Just figured it was fucking pertinent now that we're riding together on account of the fact that he might rear his ugly head at some point down the road.
Well, I appreciate that warning, Mr. Finch, but with all due respect, after what we've been dealing with for the past couple days, I could not fucking care less about Abraham What's-His-Face.
Yeah, well, he ain't the devil himself, but he is one mean son of a bitch. Jeremiah checks his pocket watch and sees how late it is. Oh, well, on that note, I will take my leave of y'all. It has been a pleasure to share such a delicious meal in such wonderful company.
I hope to have more of the like, Mr. Finch. And Skillet pulls his hat down over his eyes and goes to sleep, sitting up.
Good night, Mr. Finch. I'm gonna go find my brother and see if he's alright.
Salutations and good night, Miss Ember. And with a smile and a nod, Jeremiah lays down in his bedroll, tilts his hat down over his face, and goes to sleep.
Ember gathers herself and stalks off in the direction of Elias.
Ember, you find Elias knelt on the ground about 100 feet off, whittling a cross out of balsa wood.
Be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving. Present your requests to God, and the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And Ember walks over to Elias.
Elias jumps, afraid, at the sudden noise. Mary Elizabeth, don't scare me like that.
Sorry, I forgot how jumpy you can get.
I'm sorry for being me for a second. I just was, tortured by a giant man is all. I don't know how to handle any of this.
Ember walks up to him and pats his shoulder reassuringly. You've had a hell of a night, and I'm sorry you've had to go through all that. I know you're kind of new to this whole side of things. And I'm with you, I do think we need to talk about what happened. But I also think that we can maybe do that tomorrow after we've had some more time to maybe internally process what just happened.
You're right. I just, I read the scripture. That's pretty much all I do. And I talk to him. I've talked to him. But to see it is different. And I just now realize that I never thanked you for saving my life. So thank you, Mary Elizabeth, for saving my life. Again.
Ember looks almost conflicted about doing so, like she's kind of arguing with herself about whether she should or shouldn't, and finally pulls Elias into a big hug. Don't mention it. Please call me Ember, and we'll call it even.
Ember. Was that it?
See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Why don't we go back closer to camp and go to bed? It's been a long day for all of us.
All right.
The night is quiet. The trio plus Skillet and Old Blue are able to sleep undisturbed, and eventually the sun comes up over the horizon. The group has just about made it back to Clearbanks, but as soon as Clearbanks comes into view, you can tell something's wrong. The air is hazy with smoke, and the acrid smell of various charred materials is immediately overpowering. At the town limits, it becomes obvious. Somebody has burned Clearbanks straight to the ground. Every building lies in absolute ruin. Burned piles of wood and textiles everywhere. Bodies lie in the street with severe blade and bullet wounds in various states of dismemberment. Small fires are still smoldering at random, and there are valuables strewn throughout the wreckage. Vases, silverware, food untouched. The only thing spared from devastation, sitting like a beacon at the end of the road, is the church house. Its white chipped paint sides are spattered with blood. A ring of bodies surrounds the front door of the church. Then, over the crackle of a couple of gentle fires, you hear a cough, and then a whimper, and the long, loud cry of a baby.
Elias, upon hearing the baby's cry, hops out of the cart and hurriedly searches for it.
Skillet hobbles off after Elias.
In front of the remains of the saloon, in a trough filled with hay, you see a rustling, and under the hay, as you move it apart, you find a baby, completely untouched, just a little dusty from the hay, with big bright blue eyes, a little tuft of blonde hair, and just the very, very beginnings of little front teeth. It continues to cry as you lift it out of the trough.
Shush. And Elias casts calm emotions.
Immediately, the baby goes dead-faced, looks up at you with big blue eyes round, and then begins to sputter and laugh. Can you make a charisma save, please?
14,
You love this baby.
even in all this. Small miracles. Look at this, Mr. Skillet.
Oh, well, hey there, little fella. Coochie coochie coo.
Skillet will make a charisma save.
5.
Skillet, too, becomes enamored with the child.
Well, Mr. Elias, color me enamored with this child.
Would it be futile to look for a mother, or is this just destiny?
Oh my God, Elias, are you thinking about keeping that baby? We cannot be carrying a baby around. It is far too dangerous and inconvenient.
Ember elbows Jeremiah in the ribs. Well, what the fuck else are we gonna do with it, Jeremiah? What are you gonna do? Leave it in the church? Hope someone else finds it?
All I'm saying is, I am not responsible for him.
Yeah, no shit. You don't look like the grandpa type.
Elias shouts back. Well, to be fair, I didn't think that Skillet being here would be a great idea either, but here we are.
Skillet completely genuinely says to Elias, well, no offense taken, sir.
I was just thinking that maybe you could take this child in, seeing as it might get a bit dangerous on our path. And you're a good man, Mr. Skillet, from what I've seen. I don't want nothing bad happening to you, and I think we both don't want nothing bad happening to this little baby.
Again from his horse. Wait, are you trying to convince Skillet to leave our party? I cannot part ways with that delicious pie. How dare you, sir?
I must say, Mr. Elias, cooking for a demon hunter, a man of God, and the gentleman himself has been a highlight of my career as a traveling practitioner of the culinary arts. So I do think I'll be staying on as the party chef, if you don't mind. That said, we do need to find this little fella a home.
That is what I was suggesting. I was working through it. I'm not. Just look at this baby.
Just off to the left, a vulture rips a big long strip of skin off of a corpse.
Ember looks at Jeremiah. Do you think we should leave it with him instead?
Jeremiah looks cross and then puts a revolver bullet into the vulture, killing it immediately in an explosion of feathers before wordlessly riding off towards where the brothel used to be in the town. Caroline?
Elias, with the baby, walks off towards the church.
Mr. Elias, why don't you give that little fella to me? I ain't got no qualms playing nursemaid during his tenure with us.
Elias nods and gingerly hands the perfect child over to Skillet.
Is anyone alive in here?
As soon as Skillet grabs it, the baby starts screaming. At the same time, seems to be reaching out for Elias.
Skillet pays the crying and screaming no mind and makes his way back to the cart, doing his best to comfort the child. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird.
The screaming continues to crescendo.
Oh, you don't like that one? Well, why don't we try another tune? Well, there's a banjo in my boots and I...
Still louder screaming from the baby as it finally gets back to the cart.
Oh, for the love of God. And Ember reaches out for the baby, looks at Skillet for a nod of approval.
I suppose a feminine touch wouldn't hurt. And Skillet hands the baby out to Ember.
Ember rolls her eyes and tries to soothe the baby with light bouncing on her knee.
The baby begins to giggle with each bounce and seems to calm down again.
Yeah, that's not so
Samantha?
bad, huh?
Samantha!
It's not so bad, isn't it?
No face.
Isn't it?
No face on Samantha.
Elias gets to the front of the church. Can you make an investigation check for me?
2.
You avert your eyes from the bodies as you step over them and walk up to the steps.
Elias opens the door.
It's locked, or appears to be barred.
Elias gives a little knock on the door.
Who's there?
My name is Elias Craig. I'm a traveling preacher here with my companions. We were here not too long ago. Actually, I don't know how long ago we were, but...
Are you armed?
I'm not. My compatriots are, but they're quite a ways off at the moment. It's just me at the door.
You're a preacher, you said, right?
Yes.
Well, say the Our Father for me.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
All right, that's enough. That's enough. Just a second.
You hear a rumbling behind the door, a big screeching of wood, and then the door swings open, and before you stands a man whose face is covered in soot, visibly leaning on a very large, broken beam of wood. One of his legs looks like pulp in a sack. It is absolutely destroyed. Completely bald, very muscular, a twirly mustache that if it were properly waxed would be incredibly impressive, but right now just sort of seems mangy and dirty, and his eyes are gigantic. He wears very simple clothing, sort of beige, dirty, but happens to be wearing very large, thick leather mittens.
Well, blimey. Look at that. You really are a preacher.
Yes. Who are you?
Wincing as he drags his broken leg forward, extends his arm.
Friedrich O'Toole. Pleasure to meet you.
Elias reciprocates. As I said, Elias Craig. Looks like this town's been hit with something terrible.
Well, you've no idea, mate. He leans in a little bit. Or do ya?
Can't say for sure exactly, but me and my compatriots sure have experienced our share of evils in these past few days.
Evils, you say? Now, you said that with a little bit of something else on it. What evils have you seen?
Sir, when I say what I've seen, and when I say what I've done and heard, people don't rightly believe me.
Did you see the devil? Lucy? You'd know who I'm talking about if you saw him. Smooth-talking fella, very tall, golden eye.
Yes, we saw the devil. Hey! Elias calls to his compatriots. He's seen the devil too!
What?
Oh, all right, shut the fuck up, mate. Okay.
He looks out the back windows of the church, sort of like hobbling towards it.
Get him inside, let's go.
Everyone, get inside the church. Bring the baby.
What?
Oh, you found a little baby out there, did you?
Yes.
Super, something that can't shut up when we tell it to. Get it in here, come on.
Skillet has driven the wagon up to the church and has hopped down and is hobbling towards the front door.
Jeremiah slowly trots over and hitches his horse to the front.
Ember dismounts cautiously and looks up at her brother before asking, "Now what makes you think we should just hop on in here all together with the one lone survivor of this massacre?"
It's a church.
Oh, and nothing bad can happen in one of those, I forgot.
Hey y'all, George here again. Thanks again for listening. Make sure you are following us on our Instagram at Hero Club Podcast and visiting our website www.heroclubpodcast.com for all sorts of fun extra content and to keep updated on new announcements. Also, after that, visit magehandpress.com for tons of homebrewed D&D 5th edition supplements, and consider donating to their Dark Matter Kickstarter, a fundraiser for a beautiful published book of D&D space content. Thanks again, everyone. Back to the episode.
Don't worry, I got this. Jeremiah pulls his pistol out and points it at the Australian man.
Whoa there, all right. Take it easy, mate, take it easy.
Now explain yourself, Mr. Englishman.
Mate, the name's actually O'Toole and I'm from Australia.
Australia. A bunch of backstabbing English criminals.
Well, that's high praise coming from you, Mr. Gentleman Finch.
Jeremiah shoots at his feet.
Whoa there, hey! No offense meant, just saw your picture all over everything. I think most people know who you are, mate.
You better start talking about what transpired here, or else my aim might get a little better.
All right, but get in here. I won't talk about anything until the church doors are closed.
Well, come on then. And Jeremiah leads the group into the church, gun still firmly pointed at the man.
The doors swing shut. He turns around to face Jeremiah. Well, if you drop that gun, I might just give you a big hug, mate.
Come again?
Well, I'm still here. The skies are still blue, so you must have stopped it. Or at least, maybe he found a way. The preacher, I mean.
What?
Well, I suppose I gotta start at the beginning. You there, preacher boy. I take it you're the one God's talking to?
Yes, but how do you...
It's always the one in the collar. So, just to clear things up, you're not the only one he's been speaking to. God's a pretty good judge of character, but he's not stupid.
That makes sense. God chooses those that might have a path towards victory, and there's no way it can be just one person, right?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, he wouldn't have sent you if he knew we were going to get the job done before you got here.
Wait, I'm confused, sir. So, you said I'm the one. Who is your one?
Well, he's not here, so I'm thinking he probably didn't make it. He was the preacher of this town. His name was Leslie Billaby. You wouldn't have happened to seen what happened to him, did you? There's an uncomfortable silence, Everybody's eyes accidentally sort of turn to Jeremiah.
What? Why is everyone looking at me? Wait a minute. Is that the fella I shot in the head? With the devil?
Yes. You should know it was a mercy.
It all sort of dawns on Friedrich O'Toole. His eyes close, he sort of looks down, and one tear rolls down his cheek.
Nah, mate. I get it. That means I'm the only one left. Sheriff Michaels was the first. Preacher found each of us. Said God told him to find us, so we went. We were ahead of Lucy for months. That cult would roll into town and they'd try to perform that ceremony that I take it you've already seen, but you see, we'd already blessed the ground, making the site completely unusable. But then about a week ago, big fella named Trunk sent this big fucking dog after us, surprised us in the middle of the night, and then he showed up. You know him. Took Preacher Billaby with him. Said if he didn't come, he'd massacre the whole town. Father Billaby, he was a preacher, you know, not a general. He always thought he could save everybody. He tried to make a deal first, but Trunk took the sheriff's head off right in front of us. Threatened to throw me in a ravine if he didn't go, so he did. And they threw me in anyway. He gesticulates to his extremely rough condition. But I'm harder to kill than they bargained for. Got back here, hid inside the church, and then that Deschel fella showed up. You heard of him?
You see now that he's very pale, sweating, and blood has started to sort of collect at the bottom of his pant leg as he's been standing in one place for a long time.
No. Hearing from you, it seems like the three of us are 5 steps behind everyone else.
Right, well, he unloaded a cart full of bodies and made the pretty picture you saw outside.
What picture?
Well, I guess you can only see it from high up. He leads you up to the second floor of the church, points out the stained glass window, swings it outward so it's now just looking out onto the big main street leading up to the church, and the people have been arranged in a way that outlines a crude sun, very similar to the symbol on Elias's chest.
Elias goes to touch his scars. How many trios are out there?
Nah, no clue, mate.
Have you met any before us?
I don't know. I just know you're here for a reason. And I think that's to pass off something to you.
What is it that you have?
He goes for his coat pocket and pulls out a little box with a cross engraved into the top of it. Before he opens it, he leans in.
You see, our little trio worked nice. We had a preacher, a gunman, and a smith. Let's just say I know how to work with unusual materials.
He opens the box, and a little perfect black bullet is sitting in it. Preacher did a little bit of research, said a few prayers over the thing. Took us a whole bunch of tries to get it right. Unfortunately, he had to melt the whole grail to get just the one bullet, but it's worth it.
The Grail.
Yes, you know, the Holy Grail, the Final Supper. Look, I've already had this argument. We needed to melt it.
We're to believe that you found the Holy Grail.
Well, I mean, yeah. You haven't found any artifacts yet? How did you survive fighting the devil?
On a mere technicality, to be honest.
I don't know about that. We're capable fighters.
Our trio was just put together, so whatever you've all been doing, we ain't been doing none of that. We survived because he wanted me for whatever he was using your friend for, and then we killed that Trunk and banished his dog to hell.
Frederick laughs. He's getting very lightheaded now, and he sort of slumps back into his chair. Preacher could have fixed this right up. I think I'm starting to pass out.
Elias, can you heal this man?
Yes, of course. Elias places both hands on either side of his temple and casts Cure Wounds.
The leg begins to heal, but doesn't seem to reform quite right. The bleeding is clearly stopped. Some of the color returns to Frederick's face. He sits a little more upright. Well, thank you very much for that.
All I've ever really known how to do.
Speaking of which, can I see that bullet?
Well, I think the gentleman's the right person to be holding it. And he hands you the box. You shoot him with it, that's it. It's over. If the devil completes this ritual, which is essentially like turning a communion on its head, he'll regain pretty much all of his powers that he has in hell. The devil reincarnates every 600 years and tries to do this ever since Christ started reincarnating, but of course Christ got his job done the first time. You know, the whole bit with the cross. So he went up to heaven,
and the devil was cursed to keep trying over and over again. So we've been stopping him this time around. Until this last time, where we clearly didn't, but it would seem you did. I guess it's time you three picked up the torch. I got a couple other things here for you, actually. He pulls out a cross on a necklace, looks at both Elias and Ember before finally deciding to give it to Ember. You get on holy ground with that, no demons can touch you.
Thanks.
No problem. I noticed the glabrazier horn on your hip there.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one.
And then he finally turns to Elias and hands him a little book. And I think you ought to read that. It's got everything you need to know. It took us an awful long time to figure out just where the devil goes every time we thwart his attempt to get the ceremony completed. But if you study that, you might be able to discern where he's going to go next.
So you're saying I just use this bullet on the devil and it will kill him?
Well, if you shoot him in the head or the heart, yeah, I suppose so, but otherwise it'll just react like a normal bullet.
Sir, I haven't understood much of what you have been saying, but I can understand that. And Jeremiah finally holsters his gun.
As soon as Jeremiah holsters his gun, like lightning, a knife shoots out of Frederick's wrist, and he is at Jeremiah's throat, the tip of the dagger resting against his Adam's apple. Never holster your gun when you don't know the bloke. You should know that.
I think you've overplayed your hand. And Jeremiah motions down, pointing out a second pistol that he's already drawn and pointed at the man's gut.
Frederick smiles, opens his palm, the knife shoots back up into his wrist as he steps away from Jeremiah, undoes the clasp.
Jeremiah takes it and punches Friedrich right in the jaw. Never kick an old dog when you don't know what he's capable of.
Frederick spits out a tooth. Ha ha ha!
Jeremiah fashions the blade onto his arm and then helps Friedrich to his feet.
Well, okay then. Well, I think my job is done. If it's all the same to you, I'd really prefer if I didn't come with you. I think I've had enough of this.
You've done your tasks for God. It's up to us to carry your labors.
I've been meaning to ask you something that the preacher would never give me a straight answer to. Doesn't it bug you there's no tangible reward at the end of all this? Doesn't it bug you a little bit? I mean, I'd like a house. Even just a house to stay in. Maybe a family.
The Lord works in mysterious ways, Frederick. That house, the things you want. I know this sounds morbid, but with the work you've done, when you do expire, I think you're going to be happily surprised with what you get. But for now, there's a child right there in need of a father. May not be the house and family you wanted, but God does trick us, and he uses some weird words. I'm sorry, I only read the Bible. I don't know much about life. Just, there's a baby, and I think God wants you to have it.
And we certainly cannot keep him.
He nods for a moment. What's your name?
Elias.
Well, Elias, I've been saying yes to God for a long time now. And just this once I think I'm gonna say no. I hate kids, mate.
God damn it.
Please do not take the Lord's name in vain in his own house.
I just don't want a fucking baby.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are you gonna do with a baby when it starts screaming in the middle of a fight? I mean, that's gonna be a real hindrance. I'm not taking the thing with me. I don't know what I have chasing me right now.
Oh, come on, please.
What on earth makes you think that I'm qualified to have a kid?
Well, I'm not.
I made a bullet that kills the devil. You think I'm gonna just be a good dad?
You don't have it anymore. And Ember hands the baby over to Frederick.
Jeremiah pulls the gun again and slowly starts backing out of the church. Come on, everybody behind me now. You're gonna keep that baby, and you're gonna give us at least a 30-minute head start.
You wouldn't really do this, mate. You know I won't take care of this kid. Come on. You start to hear a galloping of horses in the distance. But then the galloping begins to get louder and louder as it's approaching. And over the din of horses' hooves, you hear a voice call out from outside.
Well, goddamn! Look at this mess! Oh, Mr. Gentleman!
Jeremiah recognizes the voice instantly.
I know that son of a bitch. Abraham Tolliver.
Skillet spits on the ground again.
I wasn't expecting you for a couple more days with your slow-ass horseback riding.
Woo! Listen to the gentleman talk is funny stuff. Using all them big words and all that. You know, I went to a fancy school. I know the words. I just choose not to use them all pretentious like. You know what? I'm getting sidetracked. I'm here to hang you. If you're gonna come out, make it easy for everyone. I think we could all go home a little happier. Maybe we make it a little quicker for you.
Although I appreciate you getting to the point right fucking quick like, I will have to unfortunately refuse your kind offer.
Oh, now, Jeremiah, you know that it's gonna be a whole lot better if you just come out here and hop in this noose. Listen, I have the entire church surrounded, and it's only a matter of time before my men start breaking windows with bricks and taking prisoners and putting scalps on posts. I mean, it's a bloodbath out here. You really outdid yourself this time. And I think a little brutality would be good to be used in kind. You see how I used all those big words there for a minute? I was doing an impression of the gentleman. That was pretty good. So are you gonna keep us waiting all day, Jeremiah?
Ember grabs the baby back from Frederick, gives him a little pinch so he'll start crying. Please, sir, the gentleman's holding us hostage inside this church, and he says that if you shoot, he's gonna kill us first, including my son, and I don't want to see that happen. Please, sir.
You know I'm capable of it, Abraham. Do not obfuscate for a second upon my intentions. I will put this baby down.
Can you both roll a performance check for me?
18.
15.
Jeremiah, you cold son of a bitch. Now listen, if you send all those hostages out here untouched, then I can guarantee you we'll hang you quick despite your disparities. I won't do what we were planning on doing, which was lying to you about the hanging thing. And well, what we were gonna do is put bullets in various places of your body and then just sort of wait for the pain to go away. And then put a new bullet in, basically one for every one of my men you have shot in the face. How's that sound?
No deal, you pusillanimous pissant.
Well, all right then, Jeremiah. You know that what comes next is unpleasant. We're just gonna sit out here and wait for you. You gotta come out sometime.
Ember pokes her head out of the window, trying to count how many men there are, while yelling, Please, sir, save us!
Roll a perception check for me.
8.
You see there's definitely more than 10.
Ember goes over and whispers into Jeremiah's ear, I want to say there are anywhere between 12 to 17 of them surrounding the church.
I like those odds. Hey, Abraham, don't you want to hear my counter offer?
Hoo-wee! What could the gentleman be bringing to the table today? I am getting impatient, Jeremiah, I do have to say.
How does this deal fancy you? You fuck right off, and all your men get to have open casket funerals.
Did you hear that, Jimmy? He said he's gonna kill us. Jeremiah, I have 100 men out here on various rooftops and the like.
I highly fucking doubt that on account of your ugliness, you writhing pile of fecal matter.
Well, suit yourself. I'll tell you what, Jeremiah. One more counteroffer. I got a pocket watch here. Took it off some dead fella on the side of the road. I call it Judge, Jury, and Executioner. Now, in 5 minutes' time, I will burn this church to the ground with you inside of it, unless you come out here with your hands in the air. Now, rest assured, I do not like the idea of destroying a house of God, as they say wherever you were raised, you pansy ass, you stupid voice. I ran out of juice there, Jimmy. Give me something to yell at him.
Well, what do you want me to say? I didn't think of anything. I didn't prepare nothing.
Jimmy sounds like a keeper. Do you keep each other warm at night?
You son of a bitch! Jimmy's my best friend, and I will not take to slandering. You know what? 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes, and I will burn the church to the ground. I don't care about God's church and all that. I'm gonna burn that church to the ground, Jeremiah.
Jeremiah turns to Frederick. You wouldn't happen to have a back entrance to this here church, would you?
Well, it is just the front door here, but he reaches behind the altar of the church and holds up 4 sticks of dynamite. We could use these for something.
Well, way to bury the lead, you limey bastard.
Well, you were about to leave me with a fucking baby, so...
That issue is still up in the air. And Jeremiah grabs the dynamite from him and heads up to the top window.
This entire time, Elias has had his mouth agape. Looks around at everyone just making choices. Where are you going with that dynamite, Mr. Finch? What are you doing talking about how it's where hostages? Why do you have dynamite in the church? What's happening?
No offense meant, Elias, but the grown-ups are talking.
Skillet gets his blunderbuss out and goes to a window.
I'm aiming to separate these men from their extremities. And if you try to stop me, You'll be next.
Ember looks over at her brother and says, okay, now look, I know that you probably have a lot of mixed feelings about this, but the point is, if we don't get out of this situation and fast, we're maybe gonna lose some in our party today. Can you do something to help us out here?
Can Elias see the main guy?
You poke your head out the window just a little bit. You see a very short man on a very large horse with a big scraggly beard, one eye that seems to be way more swollen than the other one, a very dark red nose, cradling a big shotgun. He seems to be surrounded by several men. Roll a perception check for me.
20.
You make the count after a couple of seconds looking out the window. In front of you are about 15 men, and then you see about 9 or 10 more men circling on horses.
Please, sir, I'm a preacher, and it's not just that we're being held hostage. I think there's something wrong with Mr. Finch. I think he's possessed by the devil. I suggest you flee. And Elias casts command on Abraham.
Without missing a beat, Abraham's eyes go wide as he stares at the church. He seems to see something nobody else sees. He drops the pocket watch and he starts booking it with his horse away from the church and yells behind him,
Fuck it! Burn it down! Burn it down!
and he begins to gallop fervently away.
Oh, you dumb bastard! Jeremiah takes a shot with his rifle at the fleeing Abraham.
Roll an attack with disadvantage. He is now out of range.
19.
That is a hit from afar. Roll your damage.
16 damage.
The bullet passes through his shoulder on the upper right side. He slumps forward in his horse and appears to go unresponsive, but the horse carries him out of the town.
God damn it, son of a bitch! You with your goddamn witchcraft! Jeremiah lights one of the dynamite sticks and chucks it at the group of men.
Outside the church, what? I guess we gotta burn it. Wait, what's that? Is that Three men sail into the air and impact into the ground, crumpled. Their horses skip across the ground like rocks.
Now that's how you get things done, you child! You impetulant child!
Ember puts the toddler down gently on a pew, rushes over to a window, and pulls out her sawed-off shotgun, aiming at the closest target before firing. 7.
That is a miss.
She does it again. 11.
Another miss. 2 shotgun blasts go wide as one of the Pinkertons sprints past on his horse.
Jeremiah throws 2 more sticks of dynamite into the fray.
There's a general clamor as several horses rear up and try to back away from the dynamite, and overall, 4 of them are jettisoned into the ruins of the houses around them.
Ha ha! Eat dynamite, you motherless Pinkerton scum!
Elias's face once again goes cold as the cross around his neck glows blue and floats out through the church door and appears right outside. And then suddenly, Elias's voice booms 3 times as loud as he casts thaumaturgy. This is a place of worship. Anyone who touches fire to a mere inch of this house will be sent straight to hell. This is not your place. Leave while you still can. And the cross smacks the nearest guy in the face.
Roll the attack.
27.
Roll damage.
9.
The man is knocked off his horse. His face begins to bleed profusely. Make an intimidation check.
15.
The men look startled, but move forward with some resolve and begin to light torches and ready to start burning the church. The man who was knocked off his horse yells to his fellow Pinkertons,
Whatever you do, don't listen to him. Just burn the damn thing. It's just a building, goddammit.
Frederick yells up to Jeremiah, "That's all I got, mate. You gotta improvise from here on out." He looks around at all of you as the action begins to really take off, and he says, "Best of luck to you." He turns around and just full cannonball rushes one of the windows, blasts out of the church from the back, and you see 2 Pinkertons sort of stop in front of him and level their pistols, and from behind Friedrich's back, he pulls 2 guns out, appears to hold down the trigger, and 6 bullets fly from each gun in less than a second. The men are immediately riddled with bullets, fall back off their horses. Friedrich whistles at one of the horses, and it comes around, and he hops up on it and winks at you guys through the broken window and takes off.
That cowardly bastard! You run all you want, but you can't outrun the burden of fatherhood. Believe me, I've tried. Let loose your blunderbuss, Mr. Skillet.
Right away, Mr. Finch. Skillet, from his position at a first floor window, peeks out to see which of the men are lighting torches or holding torches.
There appear to be 2 men on either side holding torches and approaching from either side of the church.
Skillet looks for the man who's most ready to throw his torch and fires at that man. 9.
The shots go wide. He's maybe scraped by a couple of nails that have been stuffed into the blunderbuss, but mostly is unfazed as he shakes it off and keeps approaching.
Skillet picks up a nearby candlestick and throws it at the man. 9 again.
The man watches the candlestick sort of clatter to his feet in the dust, looks up at Skillet with his head poking out the window, lifts his pistol, and fires. Skillet takes 8 damage as the bullet takes off his right ear.
Ooh, wait, that hurts worse than an insult at the county fair.
If we make it out of here alive, I am teaching all of y'all how to shoot guns properly.
All 4 men make it to the church and begin to set fire to its base, but it's taking a little bit for the fire to catch, so they mostly stay where they're at, trying to get the wood to burn. However, circling you, several horsemen begin to open fire into the church. They're all going to have disadvantage as you guys duck behind the walls to avoid the bullets. Jeremiah, several of the men as they pass the front of the church and look up from where the dynamite is being thrown, spot you, and 3 bullets rip through your torso, 1 entering just above your heart. Elias, with his eyes squinted in concentration, suddenly feels a bullet sort of enter his side but pass through, missing any major organs. Jeremiah, you take 59 damage.
Help! Elias, I'm leaking blood like a sieve up here.
Elias goes running up the stairs to Jeremiah.
You find Jeremiah bleeding onto the hardwood.
Oh, much obliged.
Elias runs up, oh lord, and casts Healing Word as a bonus action at 5th level, and heals him for 25 points. Dear Lord, I know you didn't have to deal much with guns, but I ask for your help now. And casts Protection from Ballistics.
You feel a warm feeling sort of in your arms and on your back, as if somebody is hugging you from behind, and you know that your prayer has been answered in some respect. The bullet above Jeremiah's heart seems to spiral while it's embedded in his chest. It shoots its way out, and the wound seems to fill and rapidly heal before you in a time lapse.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo, you got some hot hands, preacher.
Ember looks down at her sawed-off shotgun and says, "Now is not the time for target practice." Runs over to a window, jumps out, and in midair unsheathes her double swords and attacks the men trying to set the church on fire.
Roll your attacks.
21. Botched. Nat 20.
Okay, roll your damage. How do you kill both men?
As Ember comes crashing down, she slashes one of the long swords down, slicing through the first Pinkerton's neck. As she lands, she impales the other Pinkerton, disembowels him, and unsheathes her sword from his torso in an upward motion, slicing along his chest. Fucking Pinkertons.
Back inside the church on the 2nd floor.
Jeremiah sees Ember decimate the 2 men, looks to Elias and says, I don't mean to be crass, but if I was 30 years younger, your sister would be just my type.
Oh, woo!
Jeremiah unholsters his dual pistols and fires 4 shots off at the nearest riders.
Roll your attacks.
25. Crit. 24. Another crit.
Roll your damage.
61 damage. With renewed vigor, Jeremiah kicks the window off its hinges, leans out, and starts taking pot shots at the riders.
4 bullets fire out of the window, 6 men drop. One of the bullets just happens to catch a weird ricochet inside one of the men's skull, bounces into another man's head, and then his horse rears up, starts to turn itself around, and full-on kicks another man off a horse and into a pole, definitely breaking his neck.
Ha-ha!
Skillet presses his blunderbuss up against the wall that the 2 men who shot at him, trying to burn the church down, are standing against, and pulls the trigger.
That's going to be an automatic hit, but you have to get through this wall, so roll double damage as if it's a coup de grace.
10.
The wall to the church explodes open and creates a little hole. The man just on the other side gets a couple of scrapes on his face as a few of the nails make it through, and he, shocked, drops the torch into the dirt, and his side doesn't light. But he goes to pick it up again, and as he does, fires a shot through the hole. He fires blind through the hole. The bullet just bounces uselessly around the church for a second and then embeds itself in a wall. Then, furious, he pokes his head through the hole to look around for you.
Skillet, having just tamped down the last of his next shot, levels his blunderbuss and pulls the trigger at the man's head.
His head bounces back like it's on a slinky, and then he slumps over dead, his face destroyed.
Ooh-wee! Not my favorite way of making strawberry pie!
The Pinkertons keep firing into the house. Jeremiah, you take 17 damage as some bullets seem to almost curve with the air as soon as they get to you and avoid vital organs. Skillet, you take 12 damage as one of the bullets hits the hinge where your leg meets your fake leg.
Tarnation!
Jeremiah is winged and falls backward from the window. One of the men's horses rears up and tries to back away from the big blue cross suddenly in its path.
Elias's spiritual weapon tries to knock the rider off its horse. 18.
That is a hit.
8.
The man flies off his horse and starts to rear back. The other man who was hit in the head before appears to have run and hidden in one of the houses. This fella goes to join him.
Dear Lord, I'm calling on you to aid us. Cast aid at 4th level.
On all 4 of you, wounds appear to be staunched, and the pain ebbs away very quickly. You all gain 15 health points. Several of the men in front of Ember have reared up on their horses and taken a few shots, but she seems to just lightly dodge in between each one.
Ember takes out her pistol and levels 2 shots at the horseman.
One of those is a hit.
6.
The man takes the bullet to the shoulder, but maintains his seated position.
And Ember flips back through the window into the church.
Make an acrobatics check for me.
13.
With some difficulty, Ember does manage to clamber back up into the church.
And running across the church, she dives out the other window, eyeing the different Pinkerton trying to light the church from the other side. 19. Nat 20.
Roll that damage.
33 damage.
Describe the kill, and then you get to describe 2 extra kills.
Upon running over to the Pinkerton, Ember thrusts both long swords up, each one going through his chest, exiting out of each shoulder. I believe down south they call this a shish kebab. Over his shoulder, she notices 2 other men rushing up towards her. She drops the now useless man, reaches down to her ankle, pulling out her Derringer pistol, and fires off 2 shots at the men. The first bullet going through the man's esophagus and exiting out of the back of his neck. The second man, the bullet hits him right between the eyes. He looks dazed for a second and manages a couple steps before falling.
My God.
We cut back upstairs to where Elias appears to be covered in Jeremiah's blood, desperately trying to stem his wounds as they keep sprouting up faster than he can heal them.
Keep your blood in your body, old man. Oh, quit your belly aching. It's just bullet holes. Jeremiah gets shot one more time in the thigh, sights out who just shot him, and riddles him with bullets.
Roll your attacks.
22, 21, 24, 19.
4 hits. Roll your damage.
44 damage.
The man shakes with bullet impacts, falls back into the dust. 3 of his friends see that and just kick their horses in the thigh, wheel around, and speed off, running out of the town.
Skillet hobbles upstairs to join Elias and Jeremiah.
With the dash action, he makes it up.
Oh my lord, Mr. Finch, if you were painted yellow, I'd call you Swiss cheese.
Ember, outside as you drop those other 2 men, another 5 circle you on horses and begin to sort of trap you in, making the circle smaller, and then all 5 point their pistols downward and take shots at you. Of the 5 guns that go off, Ember, through a series of very acrobatic and impressive sidesteps, manages to point 3 of them up to the sky as they fire. However, she's not quite fast enough, and 2 of the bullets do enter around her sides. Ember, you take 36 damage.
Skillet, where is Mary Elizabeth?
Round the other side of the building.
Oh God, who's with the baby?
We cut to the pew where the baby is sitting. The bullets have been flying over the baby's head the entire fight, and the confused child appears to be reaching for them as the streams of dust shoot over its head.
Huh. Good question, Padre.
Elias goes running downstairs, looking for where his sister is.
It takes you a moment to locate where the commotion is outside, but eventually your eyes do catch out to the left of the church. Several horses appear to be cycloning in one spot.
Elias sees Ember surrounded, holds his hand out, Lord bless my sister, and casts Bless. While this is happening, Elias' spiritual weapon whacks another guy in the face. 20.
In one of the ruined buildings, those two men who were both struck by that blue cross meet up.
Did you see that big cross?
It broke my nose. I can't breathe through it no more.
I've never seen anything like that before in my life.
It's okay, Ted. I think we're safe back here.
The cross appears behind them.
It's right behind me, isn't it?
Using her agility to get up onto the back of one of the horses, Ember jumps up and one by one hops from horse to horse, decapitating their riders as she goes.
Roll your attack rolls. Those are all hits. Roll your damage. Ember flits from horse to horse, and as she jumps, Elias, all you see from the window of the church is a head pop up, and then a head pop up, and then another head, and then a fourth head, and then a fifth head. And then as the headless bodies slump to the floor, Ember appears to land on one of the horses tandem with one of the bodies, grabs it from the hips from behind. It's a horrifying picture for a moment, and then she hoists it off like it's a bag of grain onto the ground, grabs the reins, and flicks blood off of her swords.
I'm gonna name you Runaway.
Make an animal handling check for me.
23.
You feel like you're best friends with Runaway right off the bat. This beautiful mare appears to look at you with affection as it shakes its head. Several of the Pinkertons all look at each other. They see that their numbers have been reduced by more than 90%.
Fuck this, let's get out of here. I just shit myself.
Come on, get along. We gotta go.
I just shit myself.
Somebody get Gary's head. His wife would want it.
I just shit myself.
The men quickly disperse in all directions. There's a moment of silence as they gallop away and their hooves fade away. And then the only sound is a very sudden cough and screech of a crying baby.
Oh, hell, I had almost forgotten about the baby.
Ember trots Runaway over to the front of the church, dismounts, and goes to try to comfort the baby.
Immediately upon picking it up, it starts to giggle. Can you make a charisma save as you look into its big, blue, beautiful eyes for the first time for real?
17.
Ember, you could take or leave this baby.
And Ember kind of like begrudgingly takes the baby out to their cart.
Whoo, that was a tight pickle, y'all. Now let's get the hell out of here before that chicken-hearted Grumbletonian comes back. Jeremiah walks out the front doors of the church and unhitches Bordeaux, but something catches his eye on the ground. And he walks over and sees the pocket watch that Abraham dropped. Well, don't mind if I do. He picks it up and looks at it.
It's a little dusty, but in good repair.
Jeremiah starts spit shining it as he gets on top of Bordeaux.
Elias lingers for a moment in the church, rests his hands on one of the splintered pews. Well, at least this one's still standing.
As all of you make your way to the cart, unhitching your horses, throwing a couple of extra supplies that you found in the church into the back of your cart, you all set out, pulling away from Clearbanks. Vultures begin to descend from outside, making their way in. It's now a true ghost town, settled in the middle of this little Colorado valley. It's about high noon. Old Blue, who has been cowering in the back of the cart, pokes his big head out from under some linens, shakes his head, slobber goes everywhere.
Well, hey there, feller. Why don't you come on up and sit next to me?
Unlike the baby, Old Blue appears to love him, sits on his lap, and immediately falls asleep.
Elias takes the child from Ember, opens up the book that Frederick gave him, and begins to read out loud, soothing the child.
Elias, lots of the pages are devoted to very intricate planetary movements. There's lots of latitudes and longitudes. And then in the margins, you start to notice a little scribble. And the scribble's really hard to make out. It takes you a very long time to even discern what one word is. But eventually you get a title out of what appears to be these furious margin notes. And the title reads, Maybe Polymorph, ? With an underline.
Maybe polymorph. You hear that, little fella?
Jeremiah, as you ride your horse alongside the cart, the baby looks up from over Elias's shoulder and looks you dead in the eye. Make a charisma save.
22.
Both of you are unsure of what to make of each other, and finally, almost simultaneously, you and this baby decide that you do not like each other.
Jeremiah barks at the baby.
Mr. Finch, don't do that.
Well, it looked at me funny. Don't let it look at me funny anymore.
That baby doesn't even know you're a thing.
I don't trust it. I do not trust this baby.
There best be a good reason that I'm awake right now.
You're driving the car.
It's not that hard. I was sleeping at the range.
Oh, to catch you up to speed, this baby was looking at me funny.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you have to bark at it, Jeremiah.
I will bark at whoever I goddamn please.
Light bringer, light bringer, turn away, you great deceiver, light bringer.
This has been a Hero Club production, produced by Nick Williams and George Primavera, with associate producers Marty Abby Schneider and Dylan McCollum. Voice acting by George Primavera, Nick Williams, Hannah Fagerbakke, Dylan McCollum, and Marty Abby Schneider. Theme song written by Matthew McCollum and performed by Hannah Fagerbakke. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for his music, Nolan North for that badass intro, and to Marty Abby Schneider for his incredible artwork. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the club.
I want you where I move ya. I mold ya, I improve ya. You think you're quick, you think you're wise.
Think you're on my level, let's roll them dice.
Light bringer.
Our three heroes drift off to dreamland and
Call it a night, and the devil dies of heart problems, and everyone's okay.
They
the
wake-
rainbow to dream.
They wake up in a spoon, but it's not weird.